Hello everyone and welcome to a really wild game that just ended from round 5 of this year's FIDE Grand Swiss. It is Alireza, Firouzja versus Moke and Niemann, and it's quite a brutal game, a lot of lines to cover. Let's dive straight into it. Alireza has the white pieces and he opens with knight to f3. And aside from winning the tournament, Alireza would, well, very much like to do to qualify for the candidates tournament. He also has to look out for his rating, as if he doesn't qualify via winning the tournament, he might qualify for the candidates via being the highest rated, as currently he and Hikaru are in a race for that spot. Pawn to d5, countering the Reti with d5. We have pawn to g3, the king's Indian attack, knight to f6, and now bishop to g2. e6, we have castles, and bishop to e7. d3, we have castles, and now there are a lot of games that reach this position. Knight b to d2 is pretty much the only move that people play here. Well, some others are possible, like c3, pawn to c4. However, here we have rook to e1, and there are only a handful of games with this exact move order. So, okay, Hans deals with this by playing knight to c6, which looks very odd. You might expect something like pawn to c5, but no, he puts the knight in front of his pawn, much unlike what Fyodor taught us all those years ago. We have pawn to d4 by Alireza. The game, again, position has been reached before. Knight b to d2 is a known move. Andrei Yesipenko played it against Vladimir Fedosev in the Russian Championship 2021, and Fedosev won that game. But here we have pawn to d4, and it is now already as of move 7 that we have a completely new game. So pawn to a5, Hans starts grabbing more space on the queen side. He wants to go a4, a3, and now knight to c3. Alireza does the same, puts the knight in front of his own pawn. Now this is something you will see pretty much, on opposite sides of the rating. Like, this is something your uncle plays, and also something that super grandmasters would do. Knight to e4, and now knight to b5. Getting the knight out of the way, so now you can push the pawn, but also in some lines maybe preparing bishop to f4 to go after the c7 pawn. So okay, a4, Hans continues his expansion on the queen side, and now bishop to f4, putting pressure on c7, so of course you have to counter that. Bishop to d6, and now knight to e5 by Alireza. Knight captures, we have d captures now, attacking the bishop, and bishop to e7, and only now pawn to c4. So putting pressure on Hans's center, but Hans says bishop to d7. Now you cannot capture, or your knight on b5 will hang. So Alireza brings it back, knight to a3, and now bishop to c5, putting pressure on the f2 pawn. And there are a couple of ways you could defend this, but just rook to f1, not complicating. And what I mean by not complicating is that if you play e3, then all sorts of nasty ideas become possible. Let's say bishop b4, attack the rook, and once you move the rook, then you can play bishop captures on a3. You eliminated this pawn here, this piece here, and threaten to double the pawns on the queen side, but there's a nice in-between move. C captures on d5, and look at this now. E captures, queen captures, now still attacking the knight and the bishop, so you will have to give something back, but now bishop g4, attacking the rook, queen captures on d8, rook captures, and now rook to c2. Now you're going to play knight captures on f2, and after bishop to g5, attacking this rook, now pawn to f6. And after e captures, g captures, bishop h6, attacks the rook, knight to h3 with check, bishop captures, and only now will you play b captures on a3. The rook will move, so the bishop doesn't capture it. Also, you defend the c7 pawn, and you get this position where the material is equal. It's the bishops of opposite colors, and white also has a doubled a pawn, so it's, you know, equalish, or maybe black is slightly better due to the doubled a pawn. But yeah, that's why you don't complicate with e3. So Alireza just brings the rook back, rook to f1, pawn to f6. Now Hans wants to break Alireza's strong pawn on e5, and now e captures on f6. Knight captures on f2. Hans wants to play for more than a draw here, and he goes for the attack, basically giving up 2 pieces for the rook, but he will also have the open f-file to attack Alireza's king. So okay, rook captures on f2, bishop captures on f2, and now king captures on f2. We have queen captures on f6, and king to g1. Of course, you don't want to c e5 or g5 while the king is on the same file as the rook and the queen. So king to g1, and now queen captures on b2, putting pressure on the knight here, and queen to c1. You could also play something like knight to c2, then we have a3, and the position continues this way, but Alireza wants to keep his pieces more active, so he plays queen to c1. He gives up a pawn to start activating his pieces. So queen captures on e2, and now c captures on d5. We have e captures on d5, and now Alireza has some 17 minutes on the clock, and Hans has only 11 minutes on the clock, and this position is just really, really wild to calculate. You have to take so many moves into consideration, like do you get the rook into the game, go after the b7 pawn, do you capture on d5, do you capture on c7? So those are all valid ideas. And bishop captures on d5 comes with check, so of course why not start with that. King to h8, and now queen to c3. Very nicely done, going after the black king, also defending the knight here. Bishop to e5 is coming. The problem is if you want to be too greedy with queen captures on c7, queen d3 just wins on the spot. It attacks this bishop, it attacks the knight here, also threatens queen to d4 check to win the rook on a1, and here basically you just resign. So instead, queen to c3. Now bishop to e5 might also be coming, so Hans brings the rook into the game, stops that, and now bishop captures on b7. And while it seems like Alireza figured all of this out, here Hans threw in this c6 move, which kind of keeps the light square bishop out of the game, and this light square bishop is a crucial defender of the light squares surrounding the black king. So how do you deal with this? Well, objectively best is to bring the knight into the game via the c2 square, and now if something like bishop to h3, you just play bishop captures on c6, and no worries, the checkmate is defended. However, in the game, as Alireza was also very low on time, he played knight to c4, and he allowed Hans a very, very tricky idea, which Hans didn't go for, but he also did go for maybe an even trickier idea that he did not go through fully. And what I mean by this is that bishop to e6 is super annoying here, attacking the knight and offering the rook on e8. And if you go for this, let's say bishop captures on c4, bishop captures on e8, rook captures on e8, and now queen to d4, sorry, queen to d4, then a3 comes, and okay, you play this position with excellent chances for black. The pawn on a3 is just an absolute monster. However, in the game after knight to c4, Hans played rook to e4. He went after the knight this way, and now Alireza has to play, well, he could try a lot of things like bishop to a6 to defend the knight, or there's even a really fun variation with knight to d2, going after the rook, sort of forcing Hans to give up the exchange here, and after g captures rook f6 to go after the white king. Now the idea behind knight to d2 is knight to f1, so you can block check with knight to g3. Now rook captures on f4, bishop captures on c6, and now queen to f2 with check. King h1, and now queen to d4, and this is basically a very, very quick draw. Queen captures, rook captures, bishop captures. You're going to play rook captures, and now rook captures on f1 comes with check. King g2, rook to f8, you stop checkmate. Black is up a pawn, but this is a draw. However, after rook to e4, queen to d2 was played by Alireza, and this sort of loses the game for him, but only if Hans can figure out why. Now, I could ask you to pause the video right away to figure it out, but I'm not going to do it just yet. I'm going to show you what happened next. Here, queen captures on c4 was played. But are there any other moves that you might consider here? Well, I will show you. Queen captures on c4 was played. Queen captures on d7 was played, taking the piece back. And now, only now, I will ask you to pause the video, even though you kind of could do it on the previous move, but it would just be too hard. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Hans while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this incredible idea that even Hans missed. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is rook f to e8. The idea is, of course, a rook to e1 check, which will result in checkmate very quickly. Or if you stop that by any means, let's say bishop to d2, then, okay, white doesn't get checkmated, but now this just wins the free bishop on b7. And that's pretty much it. Queen moves, you're going to pick up the bishop, you're up too much material. The the white king is completely open. You will checkmate him very quickly. So that was in the position. However, he missed it. He played rook to e2, and now Alireza can bounce back into the game with a move like rook to c1. It's basically a free developing move, but he played bishop captures on c6, and now he again allows Hans to go in for the kill. Queen to c5 with check. King h1, and now queen to f2, going after queen captures on h2, checkmate. So queen to h3, only way to stop checkmate, and now rook to e1 with check. We have rook captures on e1, queen captures on e1, and now king to g2. We have queen to e2 with check, king to g1, and now Hans's position is much better. Probably even winning to a degree, but he has to play the only move that wins the game, but he was below 1 minute on the clock. Now, I'm sure you guys already figured out what the move is, but Hans played queen to d1 with check. The way to win this is to play a3. Not to go after the pawn, because you really don't want to give up the d4 square to the light square bishop. Then white will simply have too much counterplay. This is the way to do it. And now you will have time to reorganize your pieces. It's not easy because you're constantly going to be in the threat of checkmate. However, I will show you because it's a lot of fun. Queen to d7, and now after you capture the pawn, now of course white goes after the rook, and now you have to figure out how to defend your own king while also make progress in the game. And you do it by playing queen a1 check, king f2, queen to d4 with check, king e2, and now you double up on the d file, and you are now ready to start pushing your pawn. Of course, if queen captures, then queen to d1 with check will be too deadly. So bishop to e8, now blocking the rook and threatening queen to f8 checkmate, but now you play queen to d1 check, king f2, queen to c2 with check, king to f3, and now rook to d3 with check. The white king escapes via the g4 square, but not for long. Queen to c8 with check, king to h4, and now you force a queen trade with queen to d8. White will have to trade, captures, and once the bishop moves, you will put the rook behind the passed pawn, push the pawn, win the light square bishop for the pawn, and then you will have a rook and 2 pawns against a rook against a bishop and 2 pawns. And where you can win this, well, it's a question, but you will of course have a chance. However, Hans played queen to d1 with check, and now Alireza brings his queen into the game. Queen captures, king captures, and now pawn to g5. This is the endgame that he chooses to go into, so he wins the dark square bishop, not the light square bishop. Bishop captures on a4, and now g captures on f4. We have king to g2, and now king to g7. Bishop to b5 by Alireza, king to h6. We have pawn to a4, now the pawn is nicely defended here. F captures on g3, and this F captures on g3 is now basically a draw offer, as there is no way to continue the game. H captures, rook to f5, and it was now on move 40 that time control has been reached, so the players are no longer in time trouble, and they did play a few more moves. Of course, Hans will try something, even though objectively it's a draw. Rook to c5, he attacked the bishop, got his king into the game a little bit, but there is no way to actually make progress here. So they danced around a little bit, but after Alireza showed that he's not planning on losing this, of course, they agreed to a draw on move 53. So yeah, really wild stuff. Very nicely played by both of them. Hans definitely got his chance with the black pieces, but in this crucial moment, the one where he was below 1 minute on the clock, not really counting that, where you have to play a3 because you just don't consider such a move with the bishops and the queen going after your own king. But here, this would have been very clean. Just rook f to e8, and it's resigned time. There's no way to get out of this. So yeah, great escape by Alireza, and a great game by Hans. All in all, a very nice game. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. A fair result, a draw. I would like to wish a very happy birthday to Dino Vodopia, and I would like to thank John Gear Law Office, Mario Milano, The Brooders on Spotify, and Stephen McCann for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the FIDE Grand Swiss. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.